3 years into their marriage, Alexander remained a stranger. He was a perfect, impassive sculpture in their cavernous Manhattan penthouse, a provider who never touched, never initiated. Even during Julian's heats, their encounters were transactions, executed with a chilling precision. The moment Julian gave the slightest indication of release, Alex would withdraw, leaving him aching and incomplete. He would retreat to the master bath, the sound of the shower a testament to a distance that felt wider than the city skyline outside their window. Julian had finally reached his breaking point. He was listening through the heavy oak door of Alexander's home office, a conversation confirming his darkest suspicions. He could hear Alex's low baritone, frayed with a rare thread of frustration as he spoke to his best friend, Mark. Alex recounted how, in the middle of things, Julian would seem completely lost to the feeling, only to then stubbornly refuse to let Alex touch him more. Julian's heart went cold. He knew exactly what Alex was implying, that the wild thing he'd become in someone else's bed had spoiled him. Alex believed the stories, the rumors Julian's reputation had always carried. He thought Julian had been with some young, eager lover outside their marriage. Mark's voice, tinny over the speakerphone, was dismissive. He thought Alex was crazy for putting up with it, offering to find him a line of beautiful, compliant partners who would appreciate him. But Alexander's reply was what shattered the last of Julian's resolve. He defended Julian, his tone turning hard. Alex explained that it wasn't Julian's fault, that he'd simply made a mistake anyone could make. The real blame, he insisted, lay with the shameless alpha who would dare seduce a married man. The fact that Julian came home at all was proof, Alex claimed, that his heart was still in the right place. A dizzying heat was already coiling in Julian's stomach, his glands aching. His cycle was early, a cruel twist of fate with Alex out for a business dinner. He'd called, of course, and the response was a clipped, "I'll be there soon." The dial tone that followed felt like a door slamming shut. For 3 years, it had been the same. Alex provided a life of staggering luxury, honored every casual request, respected every boundary, but he did not love. Julian had once hired a private investigator, convinced of an affair, only to receive a file detailing a life of monastic discipline. No lovers, no secret meetings. Alexander was impeccably, terrifyingly faithful. That knowledge had offered a sliver of hope, a hope that had since been ground to dust with every sterile encounter. Tonight would be the last test. Dressed only in a silk robe, left daringly open, Julian waited. The front door crashed open. Alex stumbled in, leaning against the doorframe, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The dim entryway light cast long shadows, revealing a man undone. His tailored suit was wrinkled, his chest heaving, dark hair falling across his forehead. Julian didn't hesitate. He let the robe fall away and met Alex in the hallway, pressing his feverish body against him. Alexander's body went rigid. His eyes darted away, his breathing accelerating. The air grew thick with the scent of aged Cabernet, rich and slightly bitter, threatening to drown Julian in its intensity. Alex whispered his full name, Julian, a sound laced with restraint. Julian, past the point of shame, cut through the tension, stating plainly that he was in heat and needed Alex to fulfill his duty. He couldn't read the expression in Alex's shadowed eyes, but he could feel the undeniable evidence of his husband's arousal pressed against his stomach. In a surge of frustrated defiance, he pushed closer. A strangled groan escaped Alex. Suddenly, powerful arms were caging him, pulling him tight. Alex buried his face in Julian's neck, his movements frantic, almost feral, kissing and licking with a desperation Julian had never known. He felt himself dissolving, his legs weak, a ringing in his ears as Alex's voice, a hoarse whisper, thanked him for the chance, promising to do better this time, telling him to bite him if it was ever too much. The world narrowed to pure sensation. But then, just as he was nearing the peak, the warmth vanished. He shivered as cool air hit his skin. Alexander was standing by the bed, his knuckles white as he gripped the waistband of his trousers, his body still tense with need. It was the same story, the same humiliating rejection. Alex was telling him, without words, that this was an obligation, not a shared pleasure. That Julian's body was a duty to be serviced, not a source of mutual ecstasy. The fire in his veins turned to acid. His voice, when he found it, was a low growl, ordering Alex to get out. He couldn't stand the sight of that stoic face any longer. He watched Alexander's impassive mask crumble, revealing a flicker of raw hurt before he turned and left. Julian stumbled into the guest room, the cold sheets a poor substitute for the warmth he craved. The next morning, he called his parents and informed them of his decision to file for divorce. There was a long silence before his father asked if Alex had hurt him, promising to ruin Alexander's business interests if that were the case, but also cautioning him against making a rash decision. His mother echoed the sentiment, reminding him how patient Alex had always been, how he indulged Julian's every whim and treated them with profound respect. It was clear, she insisted, that Alex genuinely loved him. Their defense of his husband only fueled Julian's anger. He spent the day at a spa with friends and the night racing a rented sports car down deserted highways, returning home at dawn to find Alexander sitting on the sofa in the dark. He looked haggard. A shadow of stubble darkened his jaw, and his clothes were the same wrinkled suit from the night before. As Julian poured a glass of water at the wet bar, Alex came up behind him, wrapping his arms around him and resting his chin on Julian's shoulder. He murmured Julian's nickname, Jules, over and over, his warm breath tickling his neck. After a moment, he asked in a voice barely above a whisper if it was true, if Julian was really leaving him. He wanted to know what he'd done wrong, promising he would change anything. Everything. He questioned whether Julian's parents knew his favorite coffee order, the exact amount of sugar he took, or the specific scent of linen spray he preferred. He pleaded, his voice cracking, for the chance to stay, to keep taking care of him. Julian had never seen the unflappable Alexander Sterling look so broken. A pang of regret shot through him, but he steeled himself. He turned in Alex's arms to face him, explaining that this couldn't work because Alex didn't desire him, that it was time for them both to be free. As he walked away, he missed the whispered words that followed him down the hall. But I do love you. The next few days were a blur of logistics. The marriage had been a condition of a merger that saved Julian's family company, an infusion of capital from Alex that had pulled them back from the brink of bankruptcy. Despite everything, Alex had never been cruel, and Julian couldn't, in good conscience, take advantage. He spent hours sorting through assets, determining fair compensation. The stress was immense, a heavy weight on his chest. To clear his head, he called their dog sitter, Lynn, and told her he was coming by to see Buddy that afternoon. The moment he stepped out of the car at the suburban home where Buddy was boarded, a cannonball of golden fur launched itself at him. The retriever was even rounder than Julian remembered, his plumed tail thwacking against Julian's legs like a furry whip. Julian laughed, roughhousing with the overjoyed dog, his mood lifting for the first time in days. Back at the penthouse that evening, he found it dark and empty. He had hoped to talk to Alex, but it seemed he was working late. Disappointed, Julian changed into pajamas and headed for the master bedroom. As he approached the door, he heard Alex's voice from inside, low and despondent. He was on the phone again. Alex was telling someone that the plan hadn't worked, that his husband was leaving him now. He sounded like a lost child. Then he said something that made Julian freeze. Alex confessed that he knew it had always been one-sided, that he'd forced Julian into the marriage and was now paying the price. He asked if he was disgusting for using their family's financial desperation to trap the person he loved. Mark's voice came through the speaker, sharp and laced with disdain. He said something about Julian having his own pups and playthings, and that Alex was sick in the head for defending him. He told Alex to cut Julian loose, that he'd find him someone better. Julian bristled at the accusation. He had a temper and a reputation, but he had principles. He had never once been unfaithful to Alex. But before his anger could fully ignite, Alexander's voice cut in, sharp and defensive. He told Mark never to speak about Julian that way. He explained that Julian was young and it was normal to be playful. He insisted that it was the fault of other alphas for being predatory, that it wasn't Julian's fault at all. The logic was so twisted, so bizarre, that Julian could only stare at the door in disbelief. The conversation continued, with Mark suggesting that the problem was that Alex was too familiar, too domestic, compared to the thrill of the wild. The solution he proposed was for Alex to learn some new tricks. He mentioned sending over some tutorial videos and a few costumes. The truth hit Julian like a physical blow. A giddy, breathless feeling bubbled up in his chest. Alex loved him. He was just hopelessly, catastrophically insecure. Less than an hour later, a courier delivered a discreet package. Alex accepted it and immediately tore it open. Peeking through a crack in the door, Julian saw a flash of a black collar with a bell, cat ears, and what looked like a butler's uniform made of very little fabric. He saw a blush creep up Alexander's neck as he hastily shoved everything back in the bag. Steeling himself, Julian knocked on the bedroom door. He heard a clatter from within, followed by the faint jingle of a bell. He called out, asking if he could come in, but didn't wait for an answer. He pushed the door open. The sight before him was staggering. Alexander stood frozen in the middle of the room, his face a mask of scarlet mortification. He was shirtless, his impressive physique on full display. A red silk ribbon was tied in a bow across his chest. Around his neck was a black leather collar, a single silver bell resting in the hollow of his throat. Julian let out a low whistle. He told Alex, his voice laced with amusement, that he really should be more discreet when playing games with another person still in the house. Alex was practically vibrating with shame, unable to form a coherent sentence. Julian, feigning indifference, turned to leave. Alex lunged forward, grabbing his wrist. Julian raised an eyebrow, waiting. Alex's gaze dropped to Julian's legs for a moment. Then he let go abruptly. He stammered something about it being cold and that Julian should wear warmer pants. Julian sighed. He reached out and playfully flicked the ribbon on Alex's chest. He said it was a good look, that it suited him. Alex's head snapped up, a desperate hope shining in his eyes as he asked, his voice trembling, if Julian liked it. Julian let the silence stretch before admitting that he liked it very much. He added that he would like it even more if the gift knew how to unwrap itself and present itself to him. That was all the encouragement Alex needed. He swept Julian off his feet and onto the bed. The kiss was ravenous, a release of 3 years of pent-up longing. Just as things reached a fever pitch, Alex pulled back, his eyes dark and serious. He asked, his voice thick with emotion, if he could truly have Julian this time, with no stopping. Julian, already lost, could only nod frantically. Dawn was breaking when Julian finally surfaced, his body boneless and exquisitely sore. Alex held him close, kissing his temple. He started peppering Julian with questions, asking if his chest was big enough, if his abs were good to touch, if he had done a good job. Julian, exhausted but content, mumbled his affirmations. Alex beamed, tightening his hold. Then he said that since Julian had him, he didn't need that other dog anymore. He offered to find the other dog a new owner or give him money, anything to make him go away. Julian blinked, confused. He propped himself up on an elbow. He tried to explain that Alex was his husband, not his dog, that he didn't need to lower himself like that. But Alex was distraught. He pointed to a faint red mark on Julian's calf, something Julian hadn't even noticed. Alex said he knew Julian was sometimes careless, but that the other alpha was deliberately marking him, trying to ruin their lives. Understanding dawned, slow and then all at once. Julian grabbed his phone from the nightstand and pulled up a photo of a massive, goofy golden retriever. "Alex," he said slowly, "this is Buddy. He's the dog I keep outside. I love animals, but you're allergic to dander, so I have him stay with a sitter." Alex stared at the photo, his world visibly tilting on its axis. "The red mark on your leg. Buddy's tail. He gets excited. And you always shower before you see me, to wash the dog hair off so you don't have an allergic reaction." Alex looked utterly broken. He finally asked the question that had tormented him for 3 years. Why, if Julian was enjoying himself, did he always tell him to stop? Julian almost laughed. He gave Alex's backside a sharp smack. "You idiot," he said, the words full of affection. "When I say don't or stop like that, it means yes and more. It's been 3 years of this because you're a clueless block of wood." He shoved Alex out of the bed. "Go sleep on the sofa." The change in Alexander was immediate and total. The stoic businessman was replaced by an openly adoring, peacocking husband. He posted pictures of them holding hands, of the meals he cooked for Julian, of them wearing matching outfits, with captions that made Julian's friends groan. One evening, Julian came home from work to find his parents in the living room. He didn't see them at first and strode into the kitchen, where Alex was cooking. He slapped Alex playfully on the rear and tipped his chin up. "Hey, gorgeous. Miss me? Be a good boy tonight and I'll reward you." Alex's face went crimson as he frantically tried to signal toward the other room. Julian turned slowly and saw his parents, both trying to suppress their smiles. His mother waved it off, saying it was nice to see them so happy. His father pulled him aside and gruffly told him to take it easy on Alex, pointing out that Julian practically reeked of his husband's scent. Julian just rolled his eyes and pointed out that his father was just as marked by his mother. Later that night, curled up in bed together, Julian asked the question he'd always been afraid to ask. He wanted to know why Alex loved him. He worried that one day, the successful and handsome Alex Sterling would find someone younger, prettier, and less complicated. In response, Alex didn't offer grand promises. He simply pulled a thick legal document from his nightstand drawer. It was a stock transfer agreement. He was giving Julian controlling interest in his company. He explained that he loved the Julian of today, but he couldn't predict the future. This was his way of ensuring that his future self could never betray him. He signed his name. "I'm yours," he said softly. "The company is yours. So please, Jules, let me stay with you for the rest of my life." Julian pushed the papers away. He would never take Alex's life's work. Instead, he asked Alex to tell him his story. Alex's smile was blinding. He confessed that he'd known Julian for years. Back in college, Alex was a poor kid working at the dive bar near campus where Julian and his friends would hang out every Friday. He'd watch Julian, the bright, charismatic center of every room, and feel a hopeless adoration. Then, Alex's parents died in a hit-and-run, and relatives stole his inheritance, leaving him with nothing. He was at his lowest point, sitting on a curb, when a drunk Julian stumbled by and, without a word, tossed him his expensive watch. That watch paid for his tuition and saved his life. He never thought their paths would cross again. He considered it the greatest stroke of luck in his life when fate, years later, brought Julian to him, offering a marriage of convenience. He confessed his terror during their marriage. He knew Julian didn't love him and saw every quiet sigh as a sign of distaste. He tried to be the perfect, attentive husband, stopping the second he thought Julian was uncomfortable, not realizing he was causing the very pain he was trying to avoid. He'd been jealous of a phantom dog, convinced he was competing with a rival. He'd been willing to dress in ridiculous costumes, to learn any trick, just for the chance to make his moon happy. "I found my moon," Alex whispered, his voice thick with awe as he held Julian tighter, "and I was terrified he would float away. I never imagined he would choose to fall into my arms."